Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I am broadcasting live via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. I am your host, the business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is a professor of finance at Ramapo College, co-founder and president of Conger LH, and Senate candidate here in New Jersey, Dr. Murray Sabrin. I'm very excited to have him on the show today. We're going to talk today about the 2018 midterm elections on a broader scale and also here in New Jersey. I'm very excited to have him on the show today. He's an absolutely brilliant man. So I am excited to have him on the show today. But before we get to that, a couple of housekeeping items. Hello to everybody here in the Facey chat. Ms. Donna McCleary, Lance Cooper, Tony, Charles, hello. A couple new faces in the Facey chat. Welcome to Money Talk with Melanie. Nice to see you. Happy Friday to you. It is not a beautiful day in Cape May County. That's what I usually say. It's actually very cloudy and there's some very ominous clouds going on out there. Hello, Donna Johnson. How are you? So a few housekeeping items to talk about today. Number one, there's like tons of things happening. Why have I been so busy? I thought I would address this matter because I haven't been doing very many live shows. They've been a little bit on the spotty side, so I thought that I would explain myself. I've been working on several little projects, some big projects. But one of the projects that I've been working on is I am officially, I always have I've obviously had a background in finance for quite some time now, but now I am officially a licensed independent financial professional. So I'm very proud of that, very excited about that. And now officially offering my services. So I'm super duper excited about that. I'm working out of New Jersey, but I'm also working in Maryland and Greater DC and Philadelphia. So I'm super excited about that. If you want to know details about the scope of the work that I do, it takes 20 minutes. We can do it Google Hangout, Skype, or in person. You want to meet for coffee in your home? I spent a year working on this because I wanted to vet the companies that I was working with. I actually started out working with this one company, and so that I don't lose my license as quickly as I got it. I can't mention the name of the companies that I work with, but I am independent. But the company that I chose to work with is really quite awesome, and I ended up coming back to this one. So if you'd like to know about the work that I do, you can give me a shout at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com or at 937-756-6639. That's the first thing that I've been doing. Secondly, I can't believe, but I'm saying it and it's true. And so I was asked to write, as some of you guys already know, I'm a freelance writer. I freelance write for The Horn. I freelance write for Politichecks.com. Well, I was asked to write. Hey, Doug Potts. Doug says, "Oh boy, real live Melanie." Yes, she is here. Yes, I'm here and live. I was asked to freelance write. To write the foreword for a book. Now, I have never done that before, and I was just completely flattered, and I wanted to do a good job. So it took me a long time. I'm going to be completely honest and say I was very intimidated by this task. But I did a couple edits, and it's gone through. And her publicist, the author's name. I should tell you that the name of the book is called Miraculous Identity by Linda Brightman. By the way, she's going to be on the show Monday, August 13th. It's a book about your identity with God. and your relationship with God. And it's a book that comes along with a workbook. It's an amazing book, and I was privileged and blessed to be able to write the foreword to the book. So I am, anyway, so the publicist actually texted me this morning and said, how would you like your name and title that's going to go on the cover of the book? So, so there's that. But that's done. So that's another part of what I wanted to do. This is like her 9th book, and I really wanted to do the book justice, because it's the introduction to the book. So, but it's done. So that's done. So that's the other thing I've been working on. That's it. Next week, I will have on the 30th, July 30th, best-selling author, Major Scott Husing is going to be back on the show. He wrote the book Echo and Ramadi, if you recall. Major Scott Husing, former Marine, will be back on the show on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we will have back our favorite cybersecurity expert, founder, and CEO of NCX Group, Mike Fitzpatrick, will be back on the show to scare the bejesus out of us about all things going on the internet, on the internet and in cybersecurity. And unfortunately, there's always something to talk about. I saw that I saw a post somewhere, and I didn't get a chance to investigate because I was super busy today. So I hope it was a joke, but I saw somewhere that LifeLock's emails were hacked. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I was like, is somebody joking around? But I saw that somewhere on Facebook. But I hope that was a joke. I don't know. But yeah, I saw that. I hope they're kidding, because otherwise LifeLock's pretty much ruined. I mean, I would think. I was really busy today. One of the things that I was doing, I'm the vice president of the Federation of Republican Women here in New Jersey. And we have a huge fundraiser tomorrow at Monmouth Racetrack. And I am in charge of trivia. So I was putting together trivia questions today. And I tell you this because, if I do anything, it's got to be fun. So I had to come up with fun questions. So I had to come up with 10 questions. So I'm going to tell you some of them. And I wanted the questions to be funny because, like I said, I can't do it unless it's fun. So I'm going to give you some of them, but I'm not going to tell you the answers. You could, if you want, you can post your answers in the Facebook feed if you're on Facey, or look them up yourself. But one of my questions is, which famous Republican president was head cheerleader at his high school? You would be surprised. One of our famous Republican presidents was head cheerleader at his high school. There are 2 ways to determine whether a horse is male or female. Besides the obvious way, there is another way to tell whether or not a horse is male or female. I actually thought that was pretty hilarious. because I'm me and I am juvenile. So I thought that was very funny. There's another really good question in there. There's several really, really good questions. Let's see, what else? Oh, this is not funny, but this was a good question. The first horse was cloned in 2013. In what country was he cloned? Which I thought was another good one. But anyway, that's what I've been doing all. Oh, look at you, Chris Gaines. Very good. You better not have Googled that. Okay, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is Dr. Murray Sabrin. He's the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate here in New Jersey for 2018 for 2008 midterms. We will be back in a couple of moments.
Bitterness, a recipe for disaster. LOI, Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, for decades, hordes of haranguing bitter complainers have been making noise about problems both real and imagined. In fact, complaining has become industry where dumbing down bitter enemies of liberty, like Representative Way Out Waters of California, who sustains her power by taking advantage of government school indoctrinated voters who think it's just fine and dandy to follow around elderly Senator Mitch McConnell and harass him, or attack Christian patriots who simply gathered to pray for our republic. But to what end? Has the quality of life improved for those whose sole purpose in life is to complain and moan to high heaven about either slavery, capitalism, or even Trump? The truth is, most societal complainers are merely disruptive tools of those seeking to literally destroy this great republic. The Antifa/Soros grunts don't care about improving the quality of life for anyone, including themselves. The biblical definition of complaining means to be left behind. Those complainers will themselves be soon left behind as we, the people, seek providential guidance to restore America. And join me Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com and americaMatters.us. I'm Ron Edwards.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's TaxMama.com.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. I hope you all are well. My guest today is the one and only, the brilliant Dr. Murray Sabrin. He is the Libertarian candidate for Senate here in New Jersey. We're going to talk to him today about the midterm elections. Before we get to that, I want to tell you a little bit about the brilliant Dr. Murray Sabrin. I want to tell you how we met first. I was lucky enough to meet him because I subbed for a mutual friend of ours, the one and only Mr. Tom Basta, who hopefully I'll be seeing in a couple of weeks, who was on a radio show, and he asked me to sub for him. And Dr. Murray and I were on the conservative side against these two liberals. It was fun. We had a blast. And that's how I met him. And he's been on the show before, so he's returning. But he is a professor of finance and a brilliant financial mind at the Anisfield School of Business at Ramapo College of New Jersey. He's been a member of the faculty since 1985. He's a PhD in economic geography. He's got an MA in social studies education and a BA in history, geography, and social studies education. He's worked in commercial real estate sales and marketing, personal portfolio management, and economic research. In 2007, Dr. Sabrin and his wife Florence made a $250,000 gift to Ramapo College to establish the Sabrin Center for Free Enterprise at the Anisfield School of Business. His articles have appeared in The Record, The Star Ledger, Trenton Times, Asbury Park Press, and NJ Biz. His essays have appeared in Commerce Magazine, Mid-Atlantic Journal of Business, Privatization Review. He has academic articles published in Nonprofit Management and Leadership, Nonprofit Voluntary Quarterly, Journal of Business Ethics. You guys get the picture. The man is smart. He's also a published author, has plenty of books. And without further ado, Dr. Murray Sabrin, how are you?
Well, thank you, Melanie. After that introduction, I think I should just say nothing.
You have nothing else to say now, right? You're good.
Absolutely.
You're like, I can just go now. Well, welcome back to the show.
Kind.
Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad to have you back on. I don't know. Talking to you the last couple of days, I'm like kind of mad now. You want to talk to the audience about why I'm kind of mad?
Well, I think I called you a few weeks ago, and you've called me back the other day. So it was a long time between return calls. But busy on this campaign trail, meeting people, raising money for the campaign so we can get our message out, which we are doing successfully on social media and on conventional media online. And if we raise more money, the print media will take notice, the posters will take notice, and then they'll definitely say it's a three-way race. Right now, they're concentrating on the two major parties. We have two Bobs running, and our hashtag on Facebook is two Bobs, no difference, because the Republican candidate Bob Eugen donated to Bob Menendez in 2012, and now he's bashing him relentlessly on in the media, showing what an unethical guy he is. Well, people have known that for 20 years. And so it's all disingenuous for Bob Eugen to have an epiphany that Bob Menendez is unethical. People have known this for decades. So my approach to this whole campaign is what I offer the people of New Jersey is the real choice, the best choice to replace Bob Menendez, who has a 29% approval rating for an incumbent senator. That's incredible, given that the Democrats have such a huge registration margin in the state. People don't trust him. People have told me around the state who are Democrats that they don't trust Bob Menendez. He's also one of the leading warmongers in the state. In the country, in fact, he's teamed up with people in Congress who think that we should bomb countries and then ask questions later. And I think that's a totally unacceptable foreign policy. What we need to do is what President Trump is working for is peace with Putin, or I should say better relations with Putin, because the last thing we want to do is have a conflict with Russia, which has nuclear weapons. We have nuclear weapons, and the last thing we need is to repeat what we had in 1962 in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I remember vividly. Most of your audience is probably not even born then, but we were talking about a possible nuclear exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union because there were nuclear missiles in Cuba. So that tension that occurred was diffused, fortunately, and but we still have rocky relations with Cuba. We need to have a world of peaceful relations. That's what George Washington talked about in his farewell address, of having no entangling alliances and commercial relations with everybody. And that means people to people, businesses to people, trading amongst each other, because trade is the lifeblood of civilization, Melanie. Think of it. We trade with people all over the country, with Canada, with Mexico, and our standard of living goes higher because of the specialization of labor and division of labor that we have among our countries. Imagine if we just open up the whole world to trade, which I think the president wants to do. He said, let's have a world of zero tariffs. I'm all for that. Let's have zero tariffs. Remember, a tariff is a tax. So when you tax something, your standard of living goes down.
Right.
Whether it's your income that's taxed, your property that's taxed, your capital gains are taxed. People need to keep more of their own money. So what I'm advocating is not only lower taxes, but get the government out of areas that it should be in. And that's why I'm proposing a universal credit for donations to charities. This way the money stays in New Jersey. People can take care of people in need in that community. We help people become financial independent so they can build strong families and build strong economies in the local community. And we don't need this top-down, trickle-down welfareism that's been ruling the country for now almost 100 years. And we need to get away from the cycle of tax and spend and borrow, because both parties are responsible for the $21 trillion debt, the $4 trillion plus budget, which is increasing faster than the economy is growing.
Yeah.
And we have a $1 trillion deficit for at least for the next 10 years. And that's assuming that there's no recession in the next 10 years. And when the next recession hits, the deficit may balloon to $2 or $3 trillion. Who knows? Because the last time we had a major recession in 2008, 2009, the deficit hit nearly $1.5 trillion. So right now we have a bigger economy, we have a bigger budget, and if the revenue dries up because of a major recession, we are going to have a major fiscal crisis in this country, and it's already baked into the cake. It's not a matter of if, Melanie, it's a matter of when this occurs. So I've been telling people, my students particularly, get a good job, make sure you have great skills in case the job that you have disappears, you have skills that you can move into another job, and save a good portion of your income, because you need a reserve just in case you get laid off and it takes 6 months or a year to get a job. So this is basic finance 101, personal finance 101. You cannot rely on the politicians to create a good economy for us, because they mess things up. The Federal Reserve has been manipulating interest rates for the past 60 years, and they've given us this cycle, which I wrote about in the New York Times, Melanie, in 1976. I warned about this.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Well,
I want to back up a tiny bit.
I was in graduate school at the time, and I started learning all about monetary policy and fiscal policy and how the Federal Reserve destabilizes the economy. And it's been occurring since then. We got the double-digit inflation of the 1970s, which I warned about. And then we got the disinflation of the 1980s. But we had a bubble in the 90s with all the cheap money that was created, the dot-com bubble, and then we had the housing bubble. And now we have what some people have called the everything bubble. Everything is inflated, stocks, bonds, real estate. And we're now starting to see cracks in that because housing prices in some locales around the country are starting to soften and not go up as much as they have. And that could be the first sign, like we saw in 2007, that housing prices could be a leading indicator that a recession is down the road because so much money has been created and the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates to prevent inflation, which is starting to accelerate. So again, the Federal Reserve gives us this never-ending boom and bust cycle. It's not part of the free market. It's outside of the market because the Fed initiates it to trying to create a good economy. But instead, what it does is it gives the economy a sugar high, to use a very simple analogy. And when you have a sugar high, we know it crashes.
Do you think that, and I want to ask you about the dynamics of this election too, but while we're talking about this specific thing with the economy, do you think that the president knows enough about the minutia of the economy, like you just explained, to recognize what you just said about the housing market? Or I'm sure that his secretaries do, but do you think that he listens enough to understand what you just said?
Well, I think he does because during the campaign, if you remember, he said we're in a bubble. He said that during I think during one of the debates with Hillary Clinton, he said we're in a bubble, watch out. And now that he's president and the Fed is raising interest rates, he doesn't want the Fed to raise interest rates because he knows that's going to prick the bubble.
Right.
And he doesn't want to be president when the bubble burst because that's what happened in 2008 and Obama won easily in 2008.
True.
So if the bubble bursts in 2019 or 2020, it's going to be very difficult for the president to get reelected because the people usually punish the party in power when the economy heads downhill. That's what happened in 1980 when Jimmy Carter ran and Reagan won. That's what happened, let's see, what was the last time? In 1960, the economy was soft, and Nixon, the vice president that was running for the presidency, and JFK won the election in a squeaker, and many people thought that it was stolen from Nixon. But nevertheless, the economy was weak because there was a mild recession. But when you have a weak economy, well, in 1992, we didn't have a weak economy, but Clinton made it sound like a weak economy when he said, it's the economy stupid.
Right.
And you had Ross Perot running a strong third-party candidacy, and George Bush was, I think, inept. And he didn't realize that he raised taxes. He broke his promise. Remember, during the 1988 convention, he said, read my lips, no new taxes. And when you go back on your promise, the people punish you, and they punished him. And so what we have today is an incumbent senator who is wrong on, I think, every issue that affects the people of New Jersey. The only thing he does, which a colleague of mine told me the other day at the college, is that he brings money back to New Jersey. Well, with a $4 trillion budget, that money has to go somewhere. It has to go back to the state because the money is spent in states and local communities. So that's the job of every senator, no matter what party, to bring back the money that the people have been taxed to help the communities with roads and bridges and whatever. But what I'm proposing is that let's not send the money to Washington in the first place. I have to take it from Washington in the first place. Let the money stay in New Jersey and Florida and Tennessee and Texas, and let the people in the states decide how they want the government to spend their money. But better yet, let's have the people spend their money because the government is involved in too many sectors of the economy, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's housing. You name it, the government is involved in everything. And what do people complain most about? Education and housing and healthcare.
Well, let's
because
assume
when the government gets involved, prices invariably go up, and that's why people are unhappy with both political parties. Since Congress has, I think, a 20% approval rating.
Well,
So we can. So go ahead, Mel.
Sabrin, this is what comes to your candidacy alone. This is what comes to mind. And, of course, you and I were talking about this the other night, and I was talking to another Republican friend of mine about this morning. And by the way, I want to tell you about some comments in the Facey chat. I don't know if you can see them. Catherine says Murray makes a lot of sense. The better choice for New Jersey senator. Yeah. And this is what
I call an informed voter.
Amen. Judy says Murray is the man. And this is my concern, and this is what I said to a friend who lives in D.C. This morning. I said, and I after I got off the phone with you, Dr. Sabrin, I texted a friend of mine and I said, hey, did you know that that Bob Hugin is pro-choice? And as you and I discussed, that's a big problem for me. that's a problem for me. And he's like, and his response, my friend's response was, yeah, I don't know why he didn't just primary Menendez. And I was just like, wow. And then of course, the next thing he says to me is, what did he say? He said, but we have to get Menendez out. And so, basically, like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, so I said to my friend from DC this morning, I said, this is the problem. I said, how long are conservatives going to keep saying that? I said, this is how you end up with all leftists in office. I said, because if you keep picking like the best, this is basically the best worst choice, well, you're going to end up with all Democrats. Like, when are Republicans going to stop accepting that? When are we going to stop accepting like Republican light, or like,
or like Republican light? Bob Hugin said it's the responsibility of government for the welfare of the people, but it's not the role of government. The role of government is to make sure our borders are secure and that we have laws in place that punish people for committing aggression. That's the basic libertarian principle, the non-aggression principle. So if we had the government focused on those issues, we wouldn't have a $4 trillion budget and a $21 trillion debt. In fact, Jim Florio, the one-term Democratic New Jersey governor, said it best in one of his budget messages when I was writing a book on taxation in the 1990s. He said, government tries to do too much. And that's really one of the themes of my campaign. When you have the government involved in virtually every sector of the economy, you get these distortions, whether it's on trade, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on education and transportation. I mean, the government can't pave the roads right. How are they going to fix healthcare? I mean, you go throughout New Jersey, and finally they're paving some of the roads in my town, some of the streets in my town, which were a horrendous condition. It reminded me of living in a third world country. And so if you can't do roads in a cost-effective manner, how are you going to do something like healthcare, which is now a $2 trillion sector of the economy? So the point I make is, see, the Republicans and Democrats don't trust the people to maintain their affairs and to order their affairs so you have a better economy. See, I trust the people. They don't trust the people. I want the people to have freedom, to have the liberty of using their God-given skills to work in businesses, work on the job, take care of their families, help the least fortunate in our community with their charitable contributions. And that's what's called a free society. It's not a top-down society like they had in the old Soviet Union. In many ways, we resemble the old Soviet Union, but we do it in a much more gentle manner, which is called taxation and regulation. That's government spending. So I've taken this approach for now 50 years since I graduated college. I started learning about this during the 1960s, and I thought the Great Society was going to be beneficial, but it kept on getting worse and worse throughout the 1960s as I was going through college. And the Vietnam War was raging, and that was a total disaster for the American people, the people of Southeast Asia and Vietnam. And so I became a conservative, and then I became a libertarian, which are not that far apart on the major issues. See, the problem with Republicans is they talk as fiscal conservatives, but if you look at the data, Melanie, for the last 40 years, the budget of the United States Congress, and they still spend money like crazy. So the point I'm making, if you really want a fiscal conservative to go into the United States Senate and say, hey, let's take a breather here and let's see what the federal government is supposed to spend based upon the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, which outlines all the spending that the federal government is allowed to do.
Hold on, Dr. Sabrin. Hold it. Wait a minute. See what the government is supposed to spend based on an article of the Constitution?
I know I'd get you on that one.
What kind of insane, crazy talk is that?
I know. Lock me up, right? Lock me up right away.
What kind of crazy?
See, this is the problem we have. We have what I consider a post-constitutional America. That's because of the Supreme Court eventually upholding all the New Deal spending of the 1930s. After Roosevelt threatened to pack the court from 9 to 15 members, because prior to that, the Supreme Court was ruling all the spending that Roosevelt wanted with these agencies were unconstitutional. They were knocking down all these government programs, which, by the way, were modeled after Mussolini's Italy, a fascist economy. Now, that's very politically incorrect to say, but that's exactly what FDR was doing there. The Supreme Court, to its credit, was knocking it down until he threatened to pack the court. And then they started approving all these alphabet soup agencies that was the foundation for the economy we have today and for the size of the federal government. And then Johnson built upon that with the Great Society programs, and it's continued ever since, even with the Republicans. Nixon gave us all a bunch of government spending. George W. Bush gave us No Child Left Behind and Medicare prescription drugs. So what the Republicans do when they get into office is they don't repeal previous social welfare spending. What they do is build upon it and give us more social welfare spending, so more people are dependent upon the federal government. There was a wonderful book published several years ago entitled
Dr. Sabrin, I hate to interrupt you, but we have we have 2 minutes to the break. I want to tell you that, and we have an objection in the in the chat. And Mike Fitzpatrick, who is our cybersecurity expert, who appears on Money Talk with Melanie monthly, likes you. But we do have an objection in the chat. I will say that the same person said that he desperately wants to take a class with you, but he also said that we are not post-constitutional. Maybe somebody else might have said that. Maybe it's possible that he's responding to someone in the chat and I missed it. I don't know if you said that or if
I said it because if you look at the spending of the federal government,
okay,
most of it is not authorized by the U.S. Constitution. That's just a fact of life.
So you were saying that the government is you're saying that the government is operating in a post-constitutional fashion.
Because
gotcha.
Look at Obamacare. It was for in favor of Obamacare by a conservative Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice Roberts. He was the fifth vote that gave us Obamacare. There's nothing in the Constitution that authorizes the federal government to mandate that people buy health insurance. I mean, I can't find that in the Constitution. In fact, I can't.
Absolutely.
The word health care is not in the Constitution. The word education is not in the Constitution. Housing is not in the Constitution.
Nope.
Retirement benefits are not in the Constitution. So what we have is spending that is not authorized by the federal government. And so if you take a very strict constructionist point of view or originalist view, if you want to have something changed in the Constitution, you pass a constitutional amendment. For example, the Constitution didn't authorize the government to ban alcohol, so they went through the constitutional route and they banned alcohol with the 18th Amendment.
But Dr. Sabrin, constitutional amendments are like hard.
Absolutely. Well, that's the beauty of it.
Well, they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be hard.
Remember, the income tax came about because of a constitutional amendment, because in the 1890s, Congress passed an income tax and the Supreme Court ruled it was unconstitutional because it didn't follow the mandate of the Constitution. So then they passed the constitutional amendment, the 13th Amendment, to give us, the 16th Amendment, to give us an income tax. So again, if you want something that's not authorized by the Constitution, you have to amend the Constitution. You just can't pass a law and say that it's okay because Congress was tested and the Supreme Court okayed it, that doesn't make it right. Slavery was upheld by the Supreme Court. That didn't make it right in the 19th century.
I absolutely agree. We have to take a break, but we will be right back. I have a few questions for you from the Facey chat, which is very active. When we get on the other side of the break, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest today is the one and only Dr. Murray Sabrin, who is tearing it up today. We will be back on the other side of the break.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcast. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. A mere 2 miles from the state capital, the blow-eating Zeppelin Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. Also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty shadow government descent of Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackheads Glenn. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, obliterating Zeppelin sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir. Sackheads Against Tyranny. We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday night. Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business here. I'm inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right.
And welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is Dr. Murray Sabrin. He is the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate here in New Jersey. We're very fortunate to have him today. And Dr. Sabrin, we have, I wrote down, well, not really wrote, but I took down 3 questions from the Facey chat. Otherwise, I would have forgotten them. So I want to make sure that I get them answered for the audience here in the Facey chat, which is very active. The first question is, actually, you know this gentleman. I think a couple of them are from Greg Wilson, our Three Craters guy.
Right.
Yeah. I forget if, I met the Three Craters guys through you. Is that how that happened? Or the other way around? Or did I meet you through three? I think that's how it happened. If I met you through the Three Craters guys, I forget. Anyway, Greg Wilson asked the question, why are they opposed to adding you to the polls? What's up with that?
Well, this is an interesting backstory. I recently spoke with Patrick Murray, the head of the Monmouth poll, and I told him an incident that happened a few weeks ago, and he listened very carefully. And he said he's not going to be polling till September for the U.S. Senate race because in the summertime you probably get skewed results because of people on vacation, what have you. So I think he's going to include me in the polls because we have a very active campaign on social media. I'm going around the state speaking to people, and people are coming on our campaign from the Republican side. Lisa McCormick, who ran against Menendez in the Democratic primary, said some very nice things about me when I met her a month or so ago. She is obviously 180 degrees opposite me because she believes in bigger government. But one of the things that she's concerned about is integrity in government, which of course Bob Menendez doesn't have because he's used his office to enrich himself. She also believes that we need people who are clear thinking and are willing to listen to other points of view, which I am. I've done that all my life, and we can discuss how we achieve some common goals like peace and freedom and prosperity and what's the best way to achieve that. So we're getting calls from people, emails from people, messages on Facebook that people want to come to the campaign and help us out because they're tired of the bickering of the Democrats and Republicans, and the economy goes through these cycles that they're not addressing, and spending keeps on going up. And like I said, I give Trump a lot of credit for deregulating parts of the economy, which is extremely helpful. Remember, regulations are a tax on production and consumption. Tariffs are a tax on production and consumption.
Yep.
So if we reduce tariffs, reduce regulations, that's going to give us a much better economy. Now, he's also reduced tax rates, but he also needs to reduce spending because otherwise the deficit is going to increase because the economy is not going to grow as fast as I think he believes, or the revenue is not going to come in as great as he believes. And so we need to really address spending. And that's where I think the problem has been in Washington on both sides of the aisle. They don't address the spending issue, and we cannot have a country where the spending increases much faster than the economy's ability to pay for it. That's why we have these deficits.
We can't. So, no economy can have that. The economy, the Melanie Collette economy, small as it is, can't handle that either. I have another question. Let's see. What are your thoughts? This question is from Mike Fitzpatrick in the Facey chat. What are your thoughts on Jekyll Island in 1913?
Oh yeah, what is interesting about Jekyll Island, where the financial and political insiders met to plot out the creation of the Federal Reserve, and that, by the way, has now been reported on the Federal Reserve's history website. It's the first time the Federal Reserve has had an article about the creation of the Federal Reserve and mentions the secret meetings at Jekyll Island.
Okay,
so somebody wrote an article.
I'm gonna need you to back up just a tiny bit, since this we've now gone into like smarty pant territory. So
yeah,
we've gone into Dr. Murray, Mike Fitzpatrick, smarty pants territory. So for the sake of the rest of the audience, tell everybody what you guys are talking about, please.
The Federal Reserve was created in order to protect the bankers from their own bad policies of putting money out of thin air. And so now you have a central bank that backs up the bankers when they get into trouble. And that's what the bailouts were in 2008, 2009. The Federal Reserve bought $4 trillion of debt in order to bail out the bankers, to make a long story short. And so that's why we need to go back to a monetary system based upon real wealth, which is gold or silver. But gold is the best one because it has the best qualities of a real money, instead of this money that we have today, which can be manipulated, and interest rates can be manipulated by the Federal Reserve. So that's a long story. I would need an hour. We discussed this in my financial history of the United States class. But yeah, the Federal Reserve is the creature of the bankers because they needed an institution to protect them from the failure of the banking system which borrow short and lend long. That's the gist of the problem. They don't have all the money that they say they do to meet the consumer the depositor demand, and that's why we had bank runs throughout the 19th century. So that's another topic obviously, if someone wants to give me an hour or so to discuss that.
I do. I want to give
minutes.
you an hour to discuss that.
That's great. That's great.
I would totally give you an hour to discuss that. Absolutely. Okay, here's another question. Dave Milner wants to know social media, how you feel about social media censorship, and whether, I wonder if you had any trouble with that, social media censorship, and whether or not you think it's tied to some of their current financial troubles.
This is an interesting question because, remember, these companies are private companies or publicly held companies by shareholders, and this is private property. So they set the rules and terms of the contract between the users, like us, and the management of Facebook and Twitter and all that. So whatever the terms and conditions are, remember, the First Amendment is that the government shall not make any restrictions on free speech. You don't have free speech on my property. I don't have free speech on your property. Whoever owns the property determines the terms and conditions of the use of that property. And that's where I think a lot of people misconstrue the notion of free speech. On social media, as long as you don't do things that they find incendiary or hateful or things like that. Now, I've had no problem on social media so far. We've boosted our posts with ads without a problem. As long as it says that paid for by Sabrin for Senate, we can, apparently we posted ads without a problem for the past 2 months or so. You had to there had to be a verification process to make sure that we're not some international nefarious organization posting these ads. And so we had to send them a lot of information to make sure that we're real American citizens posting these ads. And so far we've had no problem whatsoever.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. But I have a friend who has a conservative blog, and he had to go through all kinds of hoops just for his blog. So I'm really glad to hear that you have not been having like a whole lot of problems. And your social media presence has been really strong.
Well, well, people go to SabrinForSenate.com. They can see all the press releases, all the endorsements we've gotten from former Congressman Ron Paul, from former Assemblyman Rick Burke, the Republican, from the former Bergen County Republican Organization Secretary Paul Dugan. People are coming to us because they want to see somebody of insight about finance, about business, about the economy, about a protector of civil liberties, a protector of free markets, to go into the Senate and work with people on both sides of the aisle and come up with solutions that the American people are hungering for, because we cannot have a top-down economy. That's what Washington has given us for so many decades, the creation of both Republicans and Democrats. We need to decentralize decision-making. That was one of the beauties of America, where the colonies turned into states, and the states were responsible, or the people were responsible, for sorting out their own affairs. And that's really the key issue, Melanie, is who's responsible for your life. And I believe, as someone whose family basically just made it out of World War II, that you are responsible for your life. That's why I'm so strong on the Second Amendment. My father survived World War II because he had the ability to defend himself. And so I make the point that no one can guarantee that America will never turn into an authoritarian society in the future. And so the Second Amendment was put there in place so people have the ability to defend themselves. It's a fundamental human right. In fact, the UN acknowledges that. In Article 3, it says human beings around the world have the right to life, liberty, and security of person. To me, that means you have to have the ability to defend yourself.
Amen.
Defending yourself means you have, if you want to, get a firearm, get trained, and learn how to use it. So, God forbid, something happens in your community, you can defend yourself. And that's why I've been a believer of the Second Amendment. When I first learned about it, when I became a U.S. citizen 69 years ago, I raised my right hand, read the Constitution, and learned that the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights really are important protectors of the American people's fundamental rights to life, liberty, and property.
I have another question for you. It's a really great one. This is from Michael Burgess. He asked the question, if you have any idea or any projections, oh gosh, this gives me pause, about what would happen if President Trump doesn't win. in 220, I suppose. And what would happen if a Democrat wins the next election? That's to say, as regards to the Trump program right now, like, what do you think? Do you think any of his programs would survive 220?
Yeah. Well, it really depends on the makeup of the Congress, because they're the ones that have to pass the legislation. See, the problem with
Sure.
what's happened to the presidency, Melanie, as you know, is that there's so many. The president has the ability to do executive orders. Now, Trump has done some executive orders when they first got into office, which some of it were pretty good. But if you have a Democrat in the White House and they started issuing executive orders, which overrides what Trump did, then we've got some real serious problems down the road. So again, you need people in Washington, especially Republicans who have been there for a long time, like Congressman Massey, Senator Rand Paul, who understand what's at stake here, and they're leading the charge in the House and in the Senate for constitutional government and making sure that the government doesn't overreach. So as a libertarian, running in the state as a libertarian, I have the opportunity to point out that if you really want someone to go to Washington to best represent the people of New Jersey, it's not the two Bobs. The two Bobs are no different. That's our hashtag. Hashtag two Bobs no different, because Eugen is basically a Hillary Clinton Republican. He basically said so without saying that directly, because he believes in a big welfare state. So if you want a big welfare state, then vote for Menendez. If you want someone to go and challenge the welfare state, vote for me. If you want someone to challenge the unnecessary wars that we've had, then you want me there, because the president has good instincts. He said, we've spent $7 trillion in the Middle East, and look what it's gotten. It's nothing. All that money has been borrowed, and the Middle East is in no better shape than it was under the dictators. Now, that's something that it's hard for people to believe, but look how many people have died since Saddam Hussein was toppled and Gaddafi was toppled. I mean, it's a horrendous situation. People have been fighting each other in the Middle East for hundreds and hundreds of years, and for us to think that we can sort out all the differences in the Middle East is foolish, because people have these long-term antagonisms toward each other, the Sunnis, the Shias, or what have you. And so for us to go in there and say we're going to be the mediator, military force, hasn't worked. So I believe we need to have more diplomacy in the Middle East and have our troops make sure that America is protected, and not try to sort out the conflicts that have been ongoing in the Middle East for centuries.
I agree. Thank you so much. That's perfect timing. It's 5:58. Dr. Murray Sabrin, you are fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Melanie. I hope all your listeners go to sabrinforsenate.com if they like what they see on the website, like what they heard this afternoon, and they hope they can support our campaign by making a donation. Last month was the 59th anniversary of becoming U.S. citizens. We're asking everyone in New Jersey to donate $59 so we can show the media we have grassroots support throughout the state. That will guarantee me to be in the debate and in the polls. It's going to take just a few thousand people, maybe as little as 10,000 people, to give us $59 a shot, or maybe more if they have more money. And so the media will say, Murray's got major grassroots support. Something is happening in New Jersey, like it happened with Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary, and it happened with Donald Trump in the Republican primary and in front of the presidency. I think what we're doing here in New Jersey is very similar to what got Bernie Sanders so much support and Donald Trump victory. We're working with the grassroots. We're working with people across the political spectrum who are really fed up with both political parties just bickering and bickering and bickering, and just allowing the welfare state and all the other programs to just continue to escalate in cost. And that's going to have a detrimental effect on our economy if we don't start reversing direction.
Yep, and I'll probably get yelled at by somebody when I get off the air. But oh well. Well, I mean, it's my show. That's why the name of the show is Money Talk with Melanie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. It's your show.
That's how it works.
Ground rules, and that's what America's all about. Whoever owns the property sets the ground rules.
Well, yeah. The NJGOP gets enough free work out of me. This is my world, as Jesse Waters says.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is your world. So thank you, Melanie, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I hope all of the listeners go to sabrinforsenate.com.
I thank you so much, sir. And I thank all of you for listening. everybody in the Facey chat, fantastic questions. You guys were really engaged. I thank you so much. If you're listening to this as a podcast, thank you very much. You guys rock. I appreciate it. All of you in SHR Media and High Plains MoneyTalk Radio Land, thank you very much. Remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a fantastic weekend.